So you feel that King Von was evil?
Man, they just came and said the man done killed 4 people. And he bragged about it. He never showed no remorse for his murder.
So what happened?
You're gonna go to jail for battering to a police officer.
Why it?
Me?
Where?
And you also.
I got everything. Where at?
Thank you very much. We'll take
I've
it
been
then.
cuffed since I was in the country. I go home, it's Valentine's Day.
Long live Von. King Von's murder is still unsolved. Let that sink in. November 6th, 2020. Atlanta, Georgia. Monaco Hookah Lounge. One of the most talented rappers Chicago ever produced. A man whose debut album had just peaked at number 5 on the Billboard 200 1 week before his death, was shot and killed in a parking lot altercation. A suspect was arrested the very next day, charged with felony murder. The internet celebrated. The family exhaled. Justice was coming. Except it never came. Because in August 2023, nearly 3 years after King Von was buried at Burr Oak Cemetery in Illinois, every single murder charge against Timothy Lul Timleaks was quietly dismissed, dropped, gone, before a single day of trial, before a single juror was seated, dismissed under Georgia's Stand Your Ground law like the whole thing never happened. And then, as if that was not enough, FBI documents surfaced. Informants lied on the stand. A YouTube blogger was paid $25,000 to cooperate with the government. O-Block members were convicted in a separate racketeering case. Lil Durk got arrested for murder for hire. And the chain of events that started that night outside that hookah lounge is still destroying lives in 2026. Nobody has told this complete story. Until right now. Now let us go back to the very beginning. Because the story of O-Block's darkest chapter does not start with a shooting outside a hookah lounge. It does not start with a beef between 2 rap crews. It does not start with a diss track or an Instagram post or a territorial dispute that spilled into the public eye. It starts years before any of that. It starts in Parkway Gardens. It starts at 64th and King Drive on Chicago's South Side. It starts in one of the most dangerous housing projects in America. A place that shaped King Von, shaped his crew, shaped his enemies, and ultimately shaped the chain of events that is still destroying lives in 2026. King Von, Davon Daquan Bennett, was not supposed to be a rapper. As a kid, he was extremely smart and an outstanding athlete, his best sport being baseball. Von could have gone pro. But because of his environment, he could not focus on athletics and instead got pulled into street gang activities. That one sentence right there should stop you cold. Because it tells you everything about what O-Block actually was. Not a choice. Not a lifestyle that somebody selected from a menu of available options. It was an environment that consumed people before they were old enough to fully understand what was happening to them. After witnessing his close friend White be murdered by 50 shots on August 8, 2012, Von admittedly changed, in his own words becoming a demon. He was a teenager when that happened. A teenager who watched somebody he loved get killed in front of him. And the version of Von that emerged from that moment, the Von that the world would eventually come to know through his music, was shaped entirely by that trauma, by that loss, by the specific way that O-Block processed grief, not through therapy or community support or any of the systems that exist for people who have access to them, but through retaliation, through loyalty, through survival by any means necessary. And then came the legal system. On July 24, 2014, Von was arrested and charged with the murder of 19-year-old Malcolm Stuckey. He was snitched on by Big Mike, who had been arrested and charged for the same murder on an earlier date. So before Von ever made a single song, before he ever stepped into a recording studio, before the world ever heard Crazy Story or took her to the O or any of the music that would eventually make him one of Chicago's most celebrated artists, this man was already navigating a murder charge at 20 years old. Already learning what it meant to have your freedom depend entirely on what someone else decided to say about you in a room you were not allowed to be in. He beat that case. After beating the murder case in late 2017, Von began his rap career, his first song being Beat That Body with THF Zoo. And what happened next was nothing short of extraordinary. Because the same storytelling ability, the same photographic memory for detail, the same capacity to put you inside a moment that had made Von such a dangerous presence in the streets, All of that translated directly into music that felt unlike anything anyone had heard before. You were not listening to somebody perform. You were listening to somebody remember. And that distinction made all the difference. By 2020, Vaughn was on the verge of becoming something truly historic. His debut album Welcome to O Block dropped on October 30th, 2020, just 1 week before his death, and peaked at number 5 on the Billboard 200. He had arrived. Completely. Undeniably. The kid from Parkway Gardens who had beaten a murder charge and turned his entire lived experience into platinum-certified music was standing at the doorway of a career that had no ceiling. And then November 6th, 2020 happened. Around 3:20 in the morning, two groups of men got into an argument at the Monaco Hookah Lounge at 255 Trinity Avenue in Atlanta. An off-duty Atlanta police officer and another on-duty officer patrolling nearby both responded and confronted the shooters and exchanged gunfire. 3 people were found shot and taken to the hospital. King Von was among them. He did not survive. The suspect believed to have shot Vaughn, 22-year-old Timothy Leaks, was also wounded in the shooting and taken into custody at Grady Memorial Hospital while being treated for his gunshot wound. The arrest was made. The case was closed according to police. The world mourned. And everybody assumed that justice, however incomplete, however insufficient, was at least on its way. But here is where O Block's darkest chapter truly begins. Here's where the story stops being about one night outside one club and becomes something that reaches into every corner of Chicago rap, federal law enforcement, the justice system, and the streets that are still feeling the consequences of everything that happened that night and everything that followed. Because the arrest of Lil Tim was not the end of the story. It was barely the beginning. And what happened over the next 3 years? The dismissed charges, the FBI documents, the lying informants, the racketeering convictions, the wrongful death lawsuits, and finally Lil Durk sitting in a federal detention center in Los Angeles. All of it traces back to one parking lot in Atlanta in the early hours of a November morning in 2020. And the evidence that has been surfacing piece by piece, document by document, courtroom testimony by courtroom testimony, paints a picture that is so much more complicated, so much more layered, so much more disturbing than the version that the blogs and the comment sections have been running with for the past 5 years. Because August 2023 hit the community like a freight train. And I want you to understand the specific weight of that moment. 3 years of waiting. 3 years of Vaughn's family, Vaughn's children, Vaughn's mother, Vaughn's fans holding on to the belief that the legal system, for once in a situation like this, was actually going to deliver accountability. 3 years of Lil Tim walking around on a $100,000 bond living his life while Vaughn's estate was still being processed and his music was still going platinum and his face was still on murals across Chicago. And then in one statement from one attorney, it was all gone. Lil Tim's attorney Noah Pines confirmed that the charges against his client were dropped. The case against Mr. Leaks was dismissed prior to ever being indicted, Pines said. That is the full statement. That is the complete explanation that Vaughn's family received after 3 years of waiting. Dismissed prior to ever being indicted. No trial. No jury. No day in court. Just gone. The charges were dropped under Georgia's Stand Your Ground law. The same law that has been at the center of some of the most controversial legal decisions in recent American history. The law that essentially says, if you felt threatened, if you believed your life was in danger, the shooting was justified. And in a situation where 2 groups of armed men got into a confrontation outside a club in the middle of the night, a situation where gunfire came from multiple directions, where off-duty police officers were also firing their weapons, proving beyond a reasonable doubt exactly who shot whom and under what specific circumstances becomes extraordinarily difficult. And Vaughn's former girlfriend Asian Doll, who had been publicly vocal about her grief and her anger since the night Vaughn died, responded to the news in a way that stopped the entire internet cold. She wrote on social media, because the police said Tim ain't kill him, the police did, before deleting the message. 4 words that opened up a question that has never been officially answered. A question about what actually happened in that parking lot when off-duty officers and armed civilians were all firing weapons simultaneously. A question about whose bullet actually ended King Von's life. A question that the state of Georgia apparently decided was not worth pursuing to a conclusion. And so Von's murder case, as of right now in 2026, remains officially unsolved. No conviction. No trial. No definitive legal accounting for what happened that night. The most prominent rapper Chicago had produced in a generation was killed, and nobody has been held legally responsible for it. That is the reality. That is the darkest chapter of O Block's story as it currently stands. But while the murder case collapsed, something else was building. Something that would eventually pull in Von's entire crew, Von's legacy, Von's closest friend and collaborator, and reshape the entire landscape of Chicago rap in ways that nobody could have predicted. In January 2023, the FBI declassified documents showing that a confidential informant alleged that Von had initially placed a $50,000 hit on FBG Duck before raising the price to $100,000. According to the informant, Von bought O blockchains for the people responsible for killing Duck. Now FBG Duck, Carlton Weekly, had been killed in a brazen daytime shooting in Chicago's Gold Coast neighborhood on August 4, 2020. 3 months before Von himself was killed. And the federal case that emerged from that shooting became one of the most significant racketeering prosecutions in Chicago rap history. Because prosecutors did not just go after the shooters. They went after the entire O Block structure. They argued that O Block was a criminal enterprise and that Duck's murder was a coordinated gang hit ordered from the top. The federal racketeering case against O Block centered on allegations that King Von had placed a hit on Duck. 6 O Block members and associates were eventually convicted in the case. But here is where the evidence gets deeply complicated. Because the case against O Block relied heavily on informants. And some of those informants, under cross-examination, under oath, in open court, admitted to lying. One O Block member turned informant admitted on the stand that he had essentially provided authorities with bogus information. During cross-examination, he was presented with a transcript of a previous FBI interview in which he had said there were no orders given or structure within O Block, directly contradicting the organized criminal enterprise narrative he was now presenting to the jury. And then there was the YouTube blogger, Martell Wiley, who runs the Trenches News YouTube channel with 114,000 subscribers, was revealed to be a paid government informant who had been given nearly $25,000 to cooperate with federal authorities investigating Duck's murder. A man who built his entire platform on covering Chicago street culture from the inside was simultaneously on the government's payroll. And the community, which had trusted his reporting, which had watched his content, which had given him access precisely because they believed he was one of them, felt completely blindsided. King Von had paid $128,000 to buy diamond-encrusted O Block pendants from an Atlanta jewelry store, giving many away to members of his crew. These chains became central evidence in the federal prosecution. The very act of celebrating his people, of buying something meaningful for the people he loved, was used against his associates in a federal courtroom after his death. And there is something uniquely painful about that. About a dead man's generosity being turned into evidence of criminal conspiracy. And then came the wrongful death lawsuit. In October 2024, FBG Duck's estate and family filed a wrongful death lawsuit naming King Von's estate, Lil Durk, and OTF Records as defendants, claiming they were profiting off of Duck's death through negligence and misconduct. And then came the biggest development of all. The one that connected every thread of this story into a single devastating conclusion. Because October 2024 changed everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. Not just for Lil Durk personally. Not just for OTF as a collective. But for the entire understanding of what the consequences of that November 2020 night in Atlanta actually were. For the entire picture of how far the ripple effects of King Von's death traveled and how many lives they touched and how many more lives they are still in the process of destroying. In October 2024, Lil Durk, born Durk Devontae Banks, Grammy winner, one of the most commercially successful artists in hip-hop history, was arrested near Miami International Airport on federal charges including conspiracy to commit murder for hire. Prosecutors allege that Banks orchestrated a plot targeting rapper Quando Rondo purportedly in retaliation for the 2020 killing of King Von, resulting in the death of Quando Rondo's cousin Savio Lulpa Robinson. Let that timeline land for a second. Von is killed in November 2020. 2 years later, August 2022, masked gunmen target Quando Rondo in Los Angeles. Rondo survives. But his cousin Lul PAB does not. And now prosecutors are saying that Lil Durk, Von's closest friend, his mentor, the man who signed him to only the family and helped turn his raw talent into a career, is the person who ordered that hit. that the love Durk had for Vaughn was so deep and so consuming that it drove him to allegedly orchestrate a murder that has now put him in a federal detention center in Los Angeles, facing the possibility of spending decades in prison. Durk has been behind bars since his arrest in October 2024 and has remained in custody after being denied bail. His trial has bounced between multiple dates: January 2025, October 2025, January 2026, April 2026, and is now officially set for August 25, 2026. The case involves approximately 230 gigabytes of digital evidence, including audio and video recordings and surveillance footage, and approximately 20,000 pages of reports concerning murder and other violent acts, photographs, witness statements, and medical documents. The complexity of the case is so unusual that the court determined it was unreasonable to expect adequate preparation within normal Speedy Trial Act time limits. 20,000 pages. 230 gigabytes. This is not a simple case. This is not a situation that is going to be resolved quickly or cleanly or without enormous consequences for everyone involved. This is a federal prosecution built over years, involving multiple defendants, multiple incidents, and a mountain of evidence that prosecutors have spent months organizing and preparing to present to a jury. In a significant development, Durk's defense team brought in Brian Steele, the attorney who represented Young Thug in the YSL RICO trial, one of the longest trials in Georgia history, which ultimately ended with Young Thug walking away with effectively time served despite facing a maximum of 120 years in prison. The addition of Steele to the defense team sent a very specific message to everyone watching this case: that Durk's team is not preparing to negotiate a plea. They are preparing to fight. To fight the same way Steele fought for Young Thug, by attacking the evidence, attacking the witnesses, attacking the government's entire narrative piece by piece until reasonable doubt becomes impossible to ignore. The judge has also ruled that certain lyrics and music videos may be introduced as evidence, a decision fueling broader debate about artistic expression in criminal trials. And this is the part that connects Lil Durk's case directly to the broader conversation about what happened to King Von and what O Block's legacy ultimately means for the artists who came from that world. Because if rap lyrics can be used as evidence of criminal intent, if the music that these men made about their lives can be presented to a jury as proof of the crimes they allegedly committed, then the artistic choice to tell the truth about where you come from becomes legally dangerous in ways that nobody fully anticipated when all of this started. And what about Munna Duke, Rashon Vance, who was identified as one of O Block's alleged leaders during the federal racketeering trial? He was shot and killed in Chicago's Edgewater neighborhood in May 2025. Gunmen jumped out of a vehicle and fired at least 50 shots. He was struck in the chest and taken to Weiss Memorial Hospital, where he died. Another life. Another funeral. Another name added to the list of people whose fates were shaped by the events that began on that night in Atlanta in November 2020. And King Von's murder case is still open. Still unsolved. Still sitting in a legal limbo that offers no comfort and no closure to the people who loved him. The man who was charged walked free under Stand Your Ground. The evidence that existed about what happened that night, who fired which weapon, whose bullet caused which wound, what exactly the sequence of events was in that parking lot, was apparently insufficient to bring the case to trial. And so the family waits. And the fans wait. And the streets wait. And the legal machinery that has consumed so many lives in the years since Von's death grinds forward without ever delivering the one thing that his people actually need. Here is what O Block's darkest chapter actually teaches us when you pull back and look at the full picture. It teaches us that violence in these communities does not end when the cameras turn off. It does not end when the funeral happens and the tributes are posted and the memorial murals go up. It multiplies. It sends shockwaves forward through time in ways that nobody can fully predict or control. Von's death led to an alleged retaliation that killed another man and put one of hip-hop's biggest stars in federal custody. The FBG Duck murder that Von allegedly ordered led to 6 convictions, a wrongful death lawsuit, and a paid YouTube informant. The O Block racketeering case consumed years of federal resources and multiple lives. And all of it, every single piece of it, traces back to the same streets, the same blocks, the same conditions that shaped these men before they were old enough to understand what those conditions were doing to them. King Von deserved better. FBG Duck deserved better. Lul PAB deserved better. Munna Duke deserved better. And the communities that produced all of them, that continue to produce extraordinary talent alongside extraordinary pain, deserve better than a cycle that never seems to find its end. The evidence is out there. The documents exist. The testimonies have been recorded. And whether or not any of it ever leads to the kind of justice that Vaughn's family is still waiting for, the truth of what happened, the full truth, is slowly coming into the light. And we are going to keep talking about it until it does. And that is the complete picture of O Block's darkest chapter that nobody else has put together for you in one place. We went from Vaughn's childhood in Parkway Gardens to his murder in Atlanta. From Lul Tim's arrest to the dismissed charges under Stand Your Ground. From the FBI documents about the FBG duck hit to the lying informants on the stand. From the 6 Block convictions to the Trenches news blogger who was on the government payroll. From the wrongful death lawsuit to Lil Durk sitting in federal detention with a trial now set for August 25, 2026. From Brian Steele joining the defense to lyrics being used as evidence in a murder-for-hire case. This story is not over. Not even close. And every new development, every court date, every filing, every statement from every attorney, adds another layer to one of the most complicated, most consequential, most deeply human stories that hip-hop has ever produced. So now I need to hear from you. Do you think King Von's murder will ever be officially solved? Do you think the Stand Your Ground dismissal was justice or a failure of the system? Do you think Lil Durk's defense team can pull off what Brian Steele pulled off for Young Thug? And do you think the full truth about what happened that night at Monaco Hookah Lounge will ever actually come out? Drop everything in the comments right now. This community does not do surface level. We go deep. We ask the hard questions. And we want your real thoughts, not the safe answer, the real one. If this video gave you information that you have not seen assembled anywhere else, hit that like button immediately. Share this with somebody who thinks they already know this story because they have only seen pieces of it. The full picture is something else entirely. And if you are not subscribed, you are genuinely missing out on the most thorough, most honest, most complete coverage of the stories that actually matter in this culture. Hit subscribe. Hit the bell. Do not miss a single upload. We are not done with this story. Durk's trial is coming in August 2026. New developments are surfacing every week. And when they drop, we will be right here breaking down every single detail for you. Rest in peace to King Von. Rest in peace to FBG Duck. Rest in peace to every person whose life was taken by a cycle that nobody seems to know how to stop. The truth matters. Always.